So it's about time for me to start flying the drone assault destroyers. This is the Algos 2 assault. Now I believe that the Algos 2 assault might be one of the most rare ships in the game at the moment. I personally haven't seen a lot of them flying around, but I did get the chance to get one for free. So about 2 or 3 months ago, it just so happens that a Badger 2 warped into our bubble, and it just so happened that my revelation was parked, and I believe most of you know what happened next. So that's the story on how I got one of the ships for free. I actually thought about doing a giveaway for that ship, and I think I still have it at Yita. I'm not really sure. So there's a chance that I might do a Algos to Assault giveaway. However, I'll have to double check where that ship is. Now, let's take a look at the ship info, at the trade description of this little boat. Roll bonus plus 12.5% drone flight velocity plus 5 seconds on the damage control activation time. Advanced small drone operation bonus will give you plus 35% drone damage, plus 5% drone effective hit points. Advanced destroyer command bonus will give you plus 7.5% warp disruptor effective range, plus 7.5% energy neutralizer optimal range, and plus 3% scan resolution. Attributes and fittings: 4 drones, 2 high slots, 3 medium slots, 4 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs, a decent cargo hold capacity, a good defense, slightly higher than the Corax assault, but I believe it's slightly lower or about the same as the Talvar 2 assault defense. Now, throughout this video, I will keep the Algos 2 assault a armor tank, just because it has a bit more armor than shield. However, it doesn't really specify that this is a... Oh, actually, my apologies. It does specify that this is a armor tank ship. So, primarily a armor tank, but I can see that a shield tank can work. A big issue on these little ships is the power grid, and I'll talk about that when I go into the fitting section of this ship. 631 gigajoule is the capacitor, 222 seconds is the recharge time, 7.11 gigajoule per second is the recharge rate. It can lock 8 targets, 49.1 meter is the signature radius, 619 meter is the scan resolution, 15.4 is the sender strength, 304 meter per second is the flight velocity, 5 astronomical kilometers per second is the warp speed. Overall, it should be a speedy little ship. Now, let's take a look at the builds. I have almost 500 DPS on this little boat. I like to use the small missile launchers. However, I also like to use the torpedo launchers, so in this video you will probably see both. 41.5 km is the range on the disruptor, 16.63 km is the range on the neutralizer. The web has 14.8 km range. Now for the drones, I have the warriors. The warriors are the fastest and they are very good at chasing down interceptors or other frigates, but you can use any other drones that you like. They actually have, I believe, the highest velocity out of any light drone. I think the new faction drones that have been released are faster, but they have lower overall hit points, 1 afterburner, 1 capacitor battery, damage control, and 1 adaptive armor hardener. So this is a medium range, long range PvP build. Basically, you keep your target at 16 kilometers. Now, this is the nanocore that I use. I believe I did use the same nanocore on all the other destroyers, so I'll keep using it. I think it's quite common to find it, and I believe it's not overpowered in any way, shape or form. Plus 16.80% drone damage, which honestly is okay. Now, for the rigs, I have the classic DPS setup, 2 drone speed augmenters and 1 firepower booster. Now for maximum possible DPS, if you like to use the drone damage amplifiers, go with 3 rate of fire rigs. As for the engineering rigs, I have a combination of capacitor rigs, but you can also go with power grid rigs if you like them. So far the stats look okay. The capacitor is stable with a medium neutralizer, so basically the goal is to maintain a 16 kilometer range from your target, or even 14 kilometer range, and basically kill their capacitor while you tank their damage. Now one mistake that I made here, I believe, is I used an afterburner. So for a long range kite build or medium range kite build, use a micro drift. The ship should have enough power grid and it should have enough capacitor, but I guess a afterburner is also a good choice if you want the capacitor stability. 21,000 hit points, which honestly is not bad, and with the damage control you get 18 seconds, and for these 18 seconds you get 62,000 hit points, which is not bad. Should be tanky enough to withstand a frigate or interceptor or things that these ships are designed to deal with. Now I had the wrong implant installed,
docking request
and
accepted.
I think I will show you what the implant setup looks like for this little ship. So the drone bombs or the thermal circulation are the way to go. However, for the extra DPS, I would personally recommend that you go with the drone bombs or bombard tactics. So let me quickly remove all of the general units. Level 15 is okay, should be more than enough. Level 30, if you really like the drone bombs, they're good. They can be a very good PvP weapon. Now I have the micro thruster, which gives me extra 40% speed. You can also pick the drone hit points, but the ship already has a bonus on hit points. And for 30 you can go with the hard point activation, because you want to have maximum possible damage output in PvP, and in most cases the fight will not last long because frigates don't have a lot of hit points, and this little boat should be blowing them up very easily. Now for the general units, depends on the build, honestly. I personally like to go and improve the armor repairs, to improve the shield boosters, capacitor batteries and things like that, but if you go with full DPS, and you can easily go with full DPS, I would recommend that you go and equip the... what were they called? Let me find them real quick. I think they were called the drone damage amplifier general units, but I believe they have, they're the drone damage amplifier general unit. They basically increase the hot DPS of the drones, or the passive DPS, or even the activation time. I personally like to combine both of them because I have crazy DPS for a short amount of time, and basically that's all I need in most fights. Now this is the current build and layout. 8.5 kilometers per second is the drone flight velocity, which is pretty good, and not many ships will be running away from these little drones, so that's one way how to fly this boat. Now I have 523 DPS. This is a build that's more of a PvE build, but at the same time can kind of be used for PvP, but I wouldn't be using this for PvP because I feel like it lacks in speed, and this ship has a bonus on neutralizers, not on Nosferatus. So for PvP I would definitely keep a build like this, basically a passive armor tank. You can use a micro drive, you can also use torpedo launchers or rapid missile launchers, or well, rocket launchers. I mean, all of that basically describes the same module, so
undocking.
that's one way to do it. With this build you basically go and approach the target. Now you don't have to use a long range disruptor necessarily, you can easily use a scrambler if you like. Basically if you are going to use the rocket launchers, then you will be orbiting at a close range, which means that a scrambler is going to be the way to go. 21,000 hit points, basically the same as before. Now the capacitor did take a big hit, and this is why I like afterburners. Now you can improve the speed of the afterburner with the general units, you can improve the speed of the micro warp drive, or you can improve the capacitor runtime with the general units. So it really depends on what type of build you have. It also depends on the skills that you have. Now let me dock. Unfortunately we still can't see the drone bomb DPS. That's something that we wait for the developers to fix, but I guess, I don't know, not priority. I don't know, that's just my guess. Now this build has one drone damage amplifier, dual armor pairs, and one afterburner, and my DPS did go up a little bit. Now it's at 620.22. The ship is capacitor stable, and with dual drone damage amplifiers the DPS should be higher, but it isn't. That's a little bit worrying me, but
Destination
okay.
reached.
So let's see how this little boat will perform. Active. Now this is a build currently that I'm using, a PvE build. I have that one disruptor just because it has a bonus on it, but we can easily use this ship for missions, for high-sec missions like any other destroyer. For high-sec missions you don't need a lot of tank. Basically one small armor pair will be enough to complete the mission. I did try to use this boat, and actually not this boat but the previous boat, the Corax 2 Assault, with the long range missiles, and it did not really work well. It works well with the Tower 2 Assault because it has a bonus on, it does have a bonus on the signature radius penalty. It reduces the penalty of the micro warp drive, so you can easily orbit around battleships, battlecruisers, cruisers without taking damage. Now the other destroyers don't really have that bonus, so in order to avoid damage and in order to be able to run missions without a problem, you have to speed tank, which means you have to use the afterburner. So a 0 kilometer orbit is definitely the way to go. I set the orbit on the drones to be at about 3 kilometers, which is their optimal range. Now the thing that you can change on this build, if you like to go and run missions with this little boat, and I'm talking about high sec missions, in low sec I would definitely fit the ship a little bit differently. In high sec you can easily run dual webs and one small Nosferatu with dual drone damage amplifiers. That way you have good DPS, your capacitor will be up and running, and you don't have to worry about the tank. And I believe you can also do a shield tank with a medium booster and a small arm, with a small Nosferatu. That is the build that I used on the Corax, the build that I used on the Talvar, and honestly it does work really well. So far no issues with that build. So this ship kind of has that thing where it can be a shield or armor tank. It really depends on what use you want out of this ship. Now for PvP I would definitely go with armor, because if you go and make this ship a active shield tank with a neutralizer, keep in mind the shield boosters eat a lot of capacitor, and if you add a medium neutralizer on top of a shield booster, that's going to be resulting in a very unstable capacitor. However, if you have capacitor batteries, I think it can be done, but the capacitor stability is definitely not going to be anywhere near the capacitor stability that you can get with a armor tank. After all, armor repairs use way less capacitor, so that's one way how you can fly this ship. Now for missions you can easily do the shield tank. I believe in high sec it's not really going to be that important, but for low sec it's going to matter a lot. Now this little ship can do low sec storylines easily. It can do even high tier storylines easily, but it will just take a lot of time. And one thing that always made me a little bit worried is having a lot of webs. Now the Tower to Assault can easily run, and I would say the Tower to Assault is the destroyer that can run the low sec storylines the easiest, just because it's so easy to build that ship. The other destroyers are a little bit more difficult, and you really have to think about the build, and you really have to simulate all different scenarios that you might encounter. Now in low sec, if you decide to run a destroyer for storylines or for encounters, your main threats are going to be frigates and, well, in some cases other destroyers, maybe cruisers, but you can easily warp away if a cruiser lands on you. But interceptors, faction frigates, things like that will probably engage you. Now unfortunately it's very difficult to fit a medium armor pair in this ship. It's doable, but in order to do that you have to go with integration rigs, and we all know that they can be quite pricey, but again, it's doable, it's possible, so you can easily replicate the armor tank build. You can keep the damage control. You can slap one medium armor repairer, and you can use one web, one scrambler, and one Nosferatu. Or you can use dual small armor repairs, one medium neutralizer, one web, and one scrambler. Or in some other cases, depends on the type of target that can engage you. Sometimes a long-range disruptor can also be the way to go, because sometimes the interceptors will be long-range. However, if you have the Bombard Implant, which I believe is actually getting cheaper as I record this, it used to be so expensive, now it's actually quite cheap. I might buy one. With the Bombard Implant, you can easily delete most frigates in seconds. If they decide to engage you, and if you have the Bombard Implant, if they get wiped, they're just dead. My friend, who I fly with every day, showed me how that works, and I see him in action every day. And yeah, drone bombs are very good weapons. That's very good implants. That's all I will say. Very useful, excellent for defending your ship, and it can be good for missions as well. I would say the drone bombs became a bit better than the barrage implant, mostly because you can remotely reload them, and it doesn't take 8 years for the implant to actually recharge. But I believe it's more expensive to use. The little, let's say, health bar on the implant might be depleting faster on the drone bombs. However, this is not confirmed. I just noticed that my implant over here is almost depleted, while my barrage implant is almost fully charged. And I used both for a lot of tests, so I believe the drone bombs do deplete faster, but again, I could be wrong. Not really sure what did deplete my implant so quickly, because I did use a lot of other ships with cannons for a lot of other tests, but I guess perhaps that's the case. Now, in terms of clear speed in high sec, well, at least in high sec you have to worry about that, because all these little destroyers are very fun to use. I honestly do enjoy flying them. Did not expect to enjoy flying them, but here I am. I actually enjoy flying them. Now drones are a bit different from the other weapon systems. Again, with drones you have good range, and with this ship you can actually slingshot frigates. Again, you can easily make them come close to you. Most frigates feel very comfortable with orbiting at, let's say, at 0 or in scrambler range. And I believe once players start to feel more comfortable in their destroyer, that the frigates will start to be popping everywhere. I have a lot of friends who fly destroyers, I have a lot of friends who fly drone boats, and all of them say the same thing, and they have the kills to prove what they say. One of my friends basically got tackled by a bunch of interceptors. I think it was like 4 of them. He was in a prophecy, and well, he basically mowed them down like no big deal. And he doesn't even have an implant, he just knows how to play. And he was dominating, one of the players that I don't wanna come across while roaming around, because they have a good chance at blowing up your ship. Whatever you fly, they have a good chance at blowing up your ship. So in the end, the build is what matters, the player's skills are what matter. Now I'm still kind of trying to figure out another good low sack build, mostly because when I think about it, not all the players will have maxed out the destroyer skills. However, I think maxing them out is actually fairly easy. They don't use a lot of skill points. I believe that they don't take a lot of skill points, so it should be fairly easy to get good skills for these little ships. So in order to fit a medium armor repair, you would need to integrate 3P or 2P engineering integrations, and I would combine capacitor and power grid, because you want to have capacitor and power grid at the same time. Perhaps even the 3P integrations, and I believe they're not that expensive. Actually, you know, let me double check the price, since I have my main account over here. Thankfully the phone is fixed. My phone was basically dead for a couple days. Not really sure what happened with that, but thankfully it's back in action. So let me take a look at the rigs. In the background, you don't see that on the screen, but it's in the background. And if I sound weird, if I make no sense at one point, it's because I'm recording this at 3 AM late at night, very sleepy. So basically once I finish recording this, I go to bed if I can sleep. If not, well, I'll just vampire through the whole night blowing up ships, because that's what I do. Where are the rigs? I don't see any rigs. Yeah, where are the rigs? Yeah, I messed up. All items on the market. Engineering rigs, integrations. So it's 15 million, the 70% integration, and the 80% one is more expensive. So you can easily get a good percentage on the integrations, which is a good thing, because it would really suck if those integrations were expensive. The combat integrations are expensive, but thankfully the engineering ones are mostly cheap. The higher tier ones are expensive. However, you don't really need to use the higher tier ones, because the 70% ones are already honestly good enough. I used them on the Hyperion, I used them on a bunch of other ships, and so far they haven't failed. my friends use them as well, and they did tell me that that's basically the best and cheapest option. You can go with maximum possible performance, but it's unnecessary because you get like, I think it's 1 to 2% at best, which, you know, I'll admit might be good in some cases, might actually save your ship one day. I mean, I'm just being honest here. Every percent in this game matters, but in most cases the cheaper integrations and the cheaper rigs are more than enough, and it keeps the cost down, so if you end up losing the ship, it's not going to cost much to get it back. After all, losing the ship is fine, don't have to worry about it. It happens to all of us. It happened to me like, I don't know, like 20 times so far. However, I haven't lost anything this year. Famous last words, but I'll try not to lose anything. I did, as you all noticed, I stopped flying expensive ships. I started flying quite cheap ones, minus the Revelation, but the Revelation is kind of retired because my alt is still banned for like 23 days, so without the alts I basically don't feel like flying the Revelation, mostly because I really don't want to take time from my friends, from my corp mates, to be the tackle for me. I feel really bad asking them for tackling for me, so I'll just wait out the ban and then we will see what will happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, so that I can be the tackle for my ship. So,
warp drive active.
How does this little boat feel in combat? You know, it definitely felt unique, and I feel like this build has a lot of room for improvement. There are some things that I don't really like how it runs. One thing I don't like is the fact that I can't fit a medium armor pair that easily without using integrations. So perhaps I'll make a part 2 of this ship, because I just don't feel like I did a good job on this, and that's just what I think happened here.
Warp drive
I feel
active.
like I can come up with something a lot better than this. So I'll definitely be playing around with the build. You guys feel free to tell me and recommend me any builds that you like, that you want to see, and builds that can improve this build. I'm definitely, as always, listening to what you have to say, because I'm also very curious to know and to see what type of builds you like to use on your ships. So I'll be docking up this little boat now. I forgot to click dock. Yeah, that explains on how sleepy I am, so my apologies for that.
Docking request
So,
accepted.
overall, I would say this is a pretty fun to fly ship, and I really hope that you enjoyed this little run with the Algos to Assault. And with that being said, I love you all, fly safe, stay safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.